The familiar antiseptic smell of Mount Sinai Hospital's surgical wing filled my nostrils as I walked through the doors one last time. My resignation letter felt heavy in my white coat pocket, though not as heavy as the disappointment I knew would come. Dr. Alexandra Kim, throwing away a brilliant surgical career for video games? Dr. Harrison's voice dripped with disdain as he read my letter. This is a joke, right? I stood firm in his office, still wearing my scrubs from my final surgery. Not a joke, sir. I've developed a VR surgical training platform that could revolutionize how we teach medicine. He laughed, the sound echoing off his wall of medical achievements. Alex, you're one of our most promising neurosurgeons. Don't throw it all away for some gaming fantasy. If he'd bothered to look at the prototype designs I'd attached to my resignation, he might have understood. But like everyone else, he'd stopped reading at virtual reality. My decision is final, I said quietly. Your mother's going to be devastated, he added, knowing exactly where to twist the knife. Dr. Sarah Kim's brilliant daughter, giving up medicine for PlayStation. I didn't correct his dismissive assumption. Let him think I was leaving to make video games. In 18 months, he'd be begging to implement my surgical training technology in his own operating rooms. The next morning, I faced an even tougher audience, my family. We sat in my parents' elegant Upper East Side dining room, where my mother had hosted countless dinner parties celebrating my medical achievements. Now she couldn't even look at me. Gaming. Her voice cracked on the word. Alexandra, you spent 12 years becoming a neurosurgeon. Your father and I sacrificed everything for your education. It's not just gaming, Mom, I tried to explain. It's medical technology. VR surgical simulation that could train doctors more effectively than traditional methods. Video games, my father corrected sharply. Let's call it what it is. My brother Michael, himself a cardiothoracic surgeon, shook his head. This is crazy, Alex. You're at the top of your field. Mount Sinai was about to make you department head. What they couldn't see, what none of them would see, was that I'd spent the last 3 years developing something revolutionary. Every night after surgery, every weekend between procedures, I'd been building and coding. My apartment's spare bedroom had become a mini tech lab, filled with VR equipment and prototype designs. I know what I'm doing, I said firmly. Clearly you don't, my mother snapped. This is just like when you wanted to quit med school to travel. Thank God we talked sense into you then. I stood, smoothing my skirt. This isn't like that. I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you my decision. Then you're on your own, my father said quietly. Don't expect any support from us. I nodded, having expected exactly this reaction. That's fine. I already have investors. This was news to them. My mother's head snapped up. What investors? Silicon Valley Venture Capital. They've seen the prototype. Initial funding is $10 million. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed my father's face. 10 million? For games. For revolutionary medical training technology, I corrected. But you'll see for yourself soon enough. I left their house that day knowing it would be months before they spoke to me again. But I had work to do. The next year passed in a blur of coding, testing, and refinement. I converted my entire savings into startup capital for Neurotech, my new company. We set up in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn, filling it with the most advanced VR and haptic feedback technology available. My team, brilliant misfits from both medical and gaming backgrounds, worked around the clock. We weren't just building a game. We were creating an entirely new way to train surgeons. The platform allowed medical students to perform virtual surgeries with unprecedented realism. Haptic feedback meant they could feel tissue resistance, vessel pulsation, the subtle differences between healthy and pathological structures. The AI-driven scenarios adapted to each user's skill level, creating infinite training possibilities. 18 months after leaving Mount Sinai, we were ready for our first major demonstration. I stood in the converted warehouse, now Neurotech's headquarters, preparing to show our platform to the country's top medical educators. Dr. Harrison is here, my assistant whispered, with the Mount Sinai board. I smiled, straightening my blazer. Perfect timing. The demonstration room was packed. Hospital administrators, medical school deans, and yes, my former boss Dr. Harrison, all waiting to see what the crazy surgeon who quit for gaming had created. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, welcome to the future of medical training. For the next hour, I showed them everything. The photorealistic surgical simulations, the adaptive learning algorithms, the data analytics that could track and enhance a student's progress. This is remarkable, breathed the dean of Harvard Medical School. The applications for teaching are endless, I finished. And it's just the beginning. Dr. Harrison sat silent, his face unreadable. But I wasn't done surprising him yet. We've already secured contracts with 15 major teaching hospitals, I continued. And as of this morning, we've received Series B funding of $150 million. The room erupted in murmurs. Dr. Harrison's jaw tightened. Any questions? I asked sweetly. The next day, my mother called for the first time in over a year. I saw you in the New York Times, she said quietly. Business section. Revolutionary medical training technology set to transform surgical education. Did you read the whole article? I asked. Yes, she whispered, including the part about the funding. Alexandra, I'm sorry we doubted you. It was a start, but I wasn't done yet. Neurotech grew exponentially over the next year. Our platform became the standard for surgical training in medical schools across the country. Hospitals that had initially dismissed us now begged for partnerships. Then came the call that changed everything. Mount Sinai is struggling, my brother Michael told me over coffee. Budget cuts, declining numbers. The board is considering selling to a corporate healthcare group. I set down my cup. Are they really? He eyed me suspiciously. Alex, what are you thinking? 2 weeks later, I sat in the Mount Sinai boardroom, not as a former surgeon, but as the CEO of Neurotech, now valued at $2.8 billion. Our latest technology had expanded beyond training into actual surgical assistance, with augmented reality systems that could guide doctors through complex procedures. This is unprecedented, Dr. Harrison sputtered, staring at my proposal. You want to buy Mount Sinai? Not just buy it, I corrected. Transform it. Make it the most technologically advanced teaching hospital in the world. Full integration of Neurotech's systems, expanded research facilities, increased resident training capacity. The board members exchanged glances. My offer was significantly higher than the corporate healthcare groups, and my vision for the hospital's future was undeniably compelling. It would be a merger, I continued, not a hostile takeover. Unless, of course, you prefer to sell to a corporation that will strip the hospital's resources and maximize profit at the expense of education and patient care. Dr. Harrison's face flushed. And I suppose you'd want to run things your way? Games in the operating room? I smiled. Actually, I'd like you to stay on as chief of surgery. You're an excellent surgeon, Dr. Harrison. You just needed to expand your vision of what medicine could be. The vote was unanimous. By the end of the day, Mount Sinai had agreed to merge with Neurotech, with me as CEO of the combined organization. That evening, I stood in my old operating room, now fitted with Neurotech's latest AR surgical guidance system. The same room where, 2 years ago, they'd laughed at my gaming fantasy. My phone buzzed, my mother again. The hospital board just announced the merger, she said. Alexandra, you now own the hospital where your father and I practiced for 30 years. Times change, I replied simply. They do, she agreed. We were wrong about you. About all of it. The next morning, I arrived early at Mount Sinai, just like I used to as a surgeon. But instead of heading to the operating room, I went to my new office, the CEO's suite. Dr. Harrison was waiting outside. I've been reviewing your complete technology portfolio, he said, holding up a thick folder. It's extraordinary. Not just the training platforms, but the surgical assistance systems, the diagnostic AI. Not bad for someone who quit medicine for video games? I couldn't resist asking. He had the grace to look embarrassed. I was wrong. We all were. You didn't leave medicine at all. You revolutionized it. I unlocked my office door. Want to see what's next? I have some ideas about robotic microsurgery that might interest you. For the first time, he smiled, not as my former boss, but as a colleague. Lead the way. Over the next year, Mount Sinai transformed. Our surgical training program became the most sought after in the country. Medical students trained on Neurotech's platforms achieved competency in half the traditional time. Patient outcomes improved dramatically with our AR-guided surgery systems. My parents finally fully came around when they saw residents using our technology. This isn't gaming, my father admitted, watching a student perform a virtual brain surgery. This is the future. That's what I tried to tell you, I said, but without bitterness. Success was vindication enough. Michael, my brother, became one of our strongest advocates, helping develop cardiac surgery simulations that transformed how we taught complex procedures. "Remember when I called you crazy?" he asked one day. "Which time?" I laughed. "All of them. But you proved us all wrong. You didn't just change games or medicine. You changed both." The media loved the story. Surgeon turns gamer, revolutionizes medical training. But they missed the real point. I hadn't left medicine for gaming. I'd merged them, creating something entirely new. 1 year after the merger, I stood addressing the incoming class of surgical residents. The same auditorium where, as a student, I'd been told to focus solely on traditional surgical techniques. "They'll tell you there's only one way to learn medicine," I told them. "They'll say innovation is risky, that crossing boundaries between fields is dangerous. But the future belongs to those who can see beyond traditional limits, who can imagine new possibilities." In the audience, I saw my parents, finally proud not despite my choices but because of them. Dr. Harrison, now a passionate advocate for medical technology innovation. My brother, helping lead our cardiac surgery program into the future. "Medicine isn't just about maintaining traditions," I continued. "It's about finding better ways to teach, to learn, to heal. Sometimes those better ways come from unexpected places, like video games." After the speech, a young resident approached me. "Dr. Kim, everyone told me I was crazy for studying both medicine and computer science. Said I had to choose." I smiled, remembering my own journey. "Let me show you what happens when you don't choose, when you combine passions instead of dividing them." That evening, I walked through Mount Sinai's halls, now filled with the technology I'd once only dreamed about. Every operating room equipped with AR guidance. Every training center using our VR platforms. Every resident learning in ways that would have seemed impossible just years ago. My phone buzzed with another offer. A major healthcare corporation wanting to buy neurotech. The number was staggering. $4.6 billion. I declined without hesitation. Some things matter more than money. Innovation. Education. The future of medicine itself. If you've ever been told to choose between passions, to stay in your lane, to follow traditional paths, remember this. Sometimes the most important breakthroughs happen when we bridge worlds instead of choosing between them. Keep innovating. Keep imagining. Keep believing in possibilities others can't see yet. Because sometimes the craziest seeming ideas, like combining video games and neurosurgery, turn out to be exactly what the world needs. And to every student, every dreamer, every innovator who's been told their ideas are too different, too risky, too unconventional, sometimes being different is exactly what makes you revolutionary. Subscribe for more stories about bridging worlds, breaking barriers, and building futures that others can't imagine yet. Because every breakthrough starts with someone willing to think differently, even if everyone else is laughing. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right, and then using that success to transform the very institutions that doubted you. Welcome to the future of medicine. It looks a lot like a video game, and that's exactly the point.